everyone, Ty Roberts here with Total Disclosure, brought to you by TDP Studios here in lovely Boston. Today, we've got something truly special, an exclusive one-on-one conversation that I had at Contact in the Desert with none other than NASA's Dr. Gregory Rogers. Now, Dr. Rogers isn't just anybody. He's the former NASA chief of medicine, a chief flight surgeon, and he's flown with some of the greatest pilots in history from our space program. But what makes this story stand out is the day he was shown something that he wasn't supposed to see on a CCTV monitor that changed everything for him. Yes, a UFO. This case is now becoming more widely known, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of his initial decision to come forward, and I am so grateful for that. Today, you get to hear the story directly from him in person. He has now been featured on Jesse Michaels' channel.
On the 4th of May, Josh Boswell came out with an interview from the UK Daily Mail, and then Ty Roberts came out with one for both the International UFO Bureau and also for Total Disclosure. He's part of both of those. I need to say that I am on the board for the
Fuck yeah, Greg.
International UFO Bureau. I'm from Oklahoma, so guess what? It's headquartered in Oklahoma City. So that comes out very handy.
Well, were you into UFOs before the sighting at all?
Coast to coast, and a plethora of other large platforms. I'm so glad that I'm able to call him not just a colleague, but a friend and part of the family. Judy, that means you as well. We have so much more in the works with Dr. Rogers on this channel, but today's episode is an insight into who Dr. Rogers is and what makes him a credible witness in the first place. What makes his story so important? I do also want to address something. In this episode, I do mention the International UFO Bureau and how I was at the time the chief marketing officer. This is no longer a true statement. I have my reasons, but I have left the organization, and truly, I wish the best for them in the future, especially in UFO reporting and UFO investigation efforts. It has the chance to be something special as long as they work with the right people. Apart from that, this episode was edited by Kari Lindsay. Their links are in the description of this video, as well as all other relevant links. Before we dive in, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you're listening on one of the amazing podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a review and hit follow. It really helps us bring these stories to even more people and a large, broader audience. All right, guys, let's get into it. This is NASA whistleblower, Dr. Gregory Rogers. You're not going to forget this one. Let's go. I'll see you on the other side. Hello, everyone. We are here at Contact in the Desert 2025 Event Horizon, and I am representing not only Total Disclosure, but the International UFO Bureau as the Chief Marketing Officer. We did an episode recently with a whistleblower who has come forward after retiring from NASA, from the DoD, from government in general. Dr. Gregory Rogers, thank you so much for coming out to Contact and being a part of this community now.
Well, I've enjoyed it.
How has it been? How has the reception been since your story has come out?
As far as the people here, I've received very worthwhile representation of the thanks that people have, because in the United States, we know what is real.
Right.
We've known what is real for decades, but we still have the government saying, no, you're not smart enough. We're smarter than you, and we're telling you this isn't real. But when the people are hungry to hear what's going on, and someone says, okay, look, I'll tell you what's going on, it's been very well received.
And do you think that, given the way that your story's been received, that would you say that the world is ready? Because now, if the government and the military are saying there's nothing to see here, but we know that there is, that means what we're dealing with is something that is paradigm shifting. Do you believe the world is ready for that paradigm shift?
Yes, I think we've actually been ready for a while. Look at the government. How many years did they say there's nothing at Tonopah, Nevada? There's no Area 51. There's nothing to see here. And so for decades, they lied to us, even when you can go on Google Earth and see an Air Force base. So this is the kind of mentality that we're dealing with inside the government. I hate to give credit to the Navy, but the Navy has been much more forthcoming. The FA-18 videos were a big part of why I decided to speak up. Especially as the evidence was presented before Congress. For the United States Air Force, it's a whole other story. The Air Force is still pretty much not releasing any information whatsoever. So having been in the Air Force, I'm just a little disappointed that the Air Force has chosen to be so reluctant to admit what people know.
And I have to ask myself, we know that the Air Force, even their intelligence, they think they're above. I mean, maybe they are the best in the business. Maybe they are, above the CIA, above the FBI, above, NSA, and maybe they are the best of the best. But they seem to operate under their own guidelines, and they do not conform to, what Congress is asking, or demanding in a way. Is, we want all the evidence you have, all of it. And the Air Force, like you said, has been notoriously quiet, very quiet, where the Navy has been, pretty vocal. Even Border Patrol is putting videos out there and saying, guys, we don't know what this is.
Department of Homeland Security.
And so that, it makes me wonder, the quietest person often has the most to say. What I want to go back for people who didn't watch the episode of the Daily Mail, or read that article, or watch the episode that we did. I want to walk through what you saw, because, or what brought you to be a whistleblower, what that event was. And then I want to dig into why this is a full circle moment, because it is it's the Air Force.
Yes. Well, actually, we have to go back to the Navy. Commander Fravor was a highly respected commander of an FA-18 squadron. And
Black Aces,
I have nothing but the greatest praise for what he has done.
Right.
His aircraft and similar aircraft in other settings have all seen and shown heads-up display video of what we know are not our aircraft or spacecraft, according to what you want to call it. So I was very impressed with that. In November of 2023, I was already planning the lecture I was going to give to the Navy Professional Development Symposium in April of 24. because I'd done that like 7 or 8 years in a row. And so I contacted the head, the commander of the professional development symposium, and I said, since the Navy has released information and it is public knowledge, it's declassified, in my lecture, I would like to discuss UAPs and how they relate to the Department of Defense and the personnel within the Department of Defense. So after several emails, he gave me authorization to do it as long as it was professional. So once I had the presentation completed, I sent my slide presentation back to the PDS personnel, and they approved it.
So now, what is the difference between what you did and say what Grush and others have done with DoD pre-publication office? Is there a difference?
There's a huge difference.
Right.
I'm an expert that has lectured on things like introduction to explosives for medical people.
Right.
So I went through what are shaped charges, what TNT is trinitrotoluene. What's the difference between TNT and tritonol? Well, you put aluminum powder in it. As the aluminum burns at a higher temperature, it increases what's known as the brisance, or the breaking ability of the detonation warhead. So I gave lectures on all of that stuff. I've given lectures to the PDS about one called Entomology 101. So I was teaching the medical people throughout the Department of Defense, and this was observed live. So and then also it was taped, and people could watch it later. So people who were stationed in Okinawa or
anywhere they can watch it. They can
anywhere in the world, they were in there, and I would have a lot of the lectures didn't do so well, and they'd have like 20 people watching it, but I would always have like at least 150 watching mine, and then a couple of the videos that I made were felt to be of such high quality. The Navy contacted me and said, would you release all claim to this, because we want to use it in training our personnel.
Wow.
So this is the quality of work I had produced for several years. So when I was planning my lecture in 2024, I wanted to speak about UAPs. So I got authorization to do it. And then just to make sure, I sent the slide deck to the public affairs officer at Fort Sill in Oklahoma, and also the McAllister Army Ammunition Plant. And so I have written authorization from both of them that this lecture is suitable. I actually gave an official lecture to the Department of Defense with authorization by the Department of Defense to talk about the effect of UAPs and to give guidelines on how medical people should interview people who had witnessed UAPs. And so that was my lecture. And so the last 15 or 20 minutes was all about UAPs and how we need to treat people who have seen UAPs, which would include our pilots, our personnel. So I gave an authorized lecture to the Department of Defense about UAPs.
So do you now, if they're using this for training, I mean, we have to assume that they want the quality of your work speaks for itself, and who you are as the former chief of aerospace medicine, flight surgeon, and nature and ability. And now you're talking about, how to approach as a medical professional a pilot or someone in the service who has either come in contact, seen a UFO. So how to approach that is essentially?
Yes. In fact, the first part of the lecture was keys to observation. For instance, if we have someone who is observing an event, what are the kinds of visual effects that can cause them to get confused about what they're seeing? So most of the lecture was about all this kind of stuff. I did include lecture for the military dealing with drones and how they operate, but of course I can't discuss that.
Yeah, of course.
And then, in fact, this year's, have you ever heard of COSPAS or SARSAT?
So the latter, yes.
Okay, well, the SARSAT is the American version. COSPAS is the Russian version, which started first. But in the meantime, France, England, I believe Japan and China have all gotten together with this. We started with low Earth orbit satellites. And so as a satellite passed over, it could see a beacon. And so at first they were using different kinds of frequencies. And so we've now gone to 405 megahertz. And as the satellite goes by, it will be looking for 405 megahertz
as the beacon to see.
As the beacon. But the problem is low Earth orbit satellites can see real clearly where somebody's at, but only at the time frame that it's over that. So when there were only a few satellites, they might have to pass 6 times before they would finally see the location.
Right.
So what they did was they started hooking up the 406 megahertz attenuators to the geostationary satellites. But the thing is, geostationary satellites can see half of the world at a time.
At a time, yeah.
But they didn't have the detail to say, okay, they're located right here. So what we've done now is gone to the Myanmar satellites.
Yes.
The medium orbit Earth satellites. And so we've already got a bunch of them up. There's going to be 34 of them. And because they have continuous surveillance of the world, if you're in a boat that sinks in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean, if you're climbing a mountain in the deserts of Utah, if somebody disappeared, it was hard to find them. It always has been. So I've done a number of search and rescue missions where we had to spend a lot of effort to try to find the people. Well, if you have one of these transmitters, you have to register it, and you give your name, your address, your telephone number. You also give contact personnel and their telephone numbers. Now then, say the boat sinks, you initiate the 405 megahertz beacon, and within 2 seconds,
you can be spotted.
You're going to be spotted to within 10 meters.
Beautiful.
Within 30 minutes, you'll be spotted to within 2 meters. Now then, it will also say, okay, this beacon belongs to Greg Rogers. Here's his address, and here's the telephone numbers that we need to call to notify his emergency contacts. And we are also transmitting this by satellite to the mission control centers all over the earth. And so whichever one is closest will immediately send out a rescue team to that location.
It's like a global commercial security system.
Yes. And so now, I'm old enough that I've done lots of search and rescue missions. And so somebody's down and you go into this large pattern that takes you an hour and a half or 2 hours to complete the pattern. And if they're not in there, you have to go to another sector and do it all over again. So that was the search part of the search and rescue, and the search was always the most difficult.
Difficult. Yeah.
Well, now you hit the 405 megahertz, and
Bingo.
we know where you're at, so we don't have to search.
Right.
Now it's just rescue.
Right. And
So this is the technology that I just lectured on in April of this year.
and that cuts a lot of money out of spending on search, because search again is the hardest part. So you've done, and I'm glad you told that story, because it's just a credit to who you are and what you've done for our country that people would never even expect. You are the nation's you are the protector of the men and women and people that left Earth to be our national heroes, and all the things. And you're doing all this post having seen what you saw in 92.
Absolutely.
So I want to shift the focus, because you're giving these lectures on UAPs. You're getting a lot of eyes on it. Let's go back.
One thing, I even got a letter recommendation from the commander who said that he had a positive result from it and he enjoyed the lecture.
Wow. Yeah, and that's
And
like I said,
and the
praise.
lecture was about UAPs.
So
Officially presented to the Department of Defense.
and it's really odd. I really want to. We could talk about Arrow in a few minutes, because clearly the DoD has more information and more detailed information than Arrow is willing to say out there. And I do want to talk about that, but after. So let's go back to 92. Can we recap what happens to you on that day? On that fateful day?
It was supposed to be just a regular, ordinary day. So about once a month, I would go up to Cape Canaveral from Patrick Air Force Base, where my flight medicine clinic was. And so I would be responsible for contacting the contractors, which was EG&G. So they were the contractor that ran the operations. Now then, like Lockheed Martin, they're building rockets. Boeing, they're building rocket parts, but also satellites. And so there's all these companies doing all of these things, but someone from the Air Force has to oversee what they're doing. So I had a contact with the doctor at EG&G, and so I told him I'm coming out. He was busy, so they had another guy I didn't know take me out, and so I think we went to 3 buildings that day. And so the third building was the one where this happened. I'd gone into this clean room to see the processing they were doing, and as I was coming out, I had on booties that were non-electrostatic, and you didn't want to carry debris in. So I had a little hat on, sort of like a surgical cap.
Right.
And I had a mask on. And so when we came out, you take all this off and dump it, and then I was going to go back to work.
Right.
So the guy that was escorting me, we finished inside there because he did it all the time. He just whipped it off and he was gone. So I took a little bit longer, so maybe 1 minute difference. But as I walk out through these double doors, there's this guy standing there, and it turned out he was a fellow major. I was a major at the time, and he was an Air Force officer. Now, I did flight physicals and gave medical care for about 1,800 people at that time. So there's no way I can remember every one of the 1,800 people, especially if I'd done this flight physical, a year ago.
Right. It's easier for the 1,800 people to remember you than for you to remember all 1,800 people.
Especially considering the fact that for a lot of them, I held their careers in their hand.
Right. That's a
Uh,
dynamic.
For just as an example, we had this one colonel, and he was on flight status, but he was mainly flying a desk at this point. But he still had to adhere to all of the rules and regulations for flight status. Well, I got a medical record back from a doctor in Melbourne about a treatment he had put my patient on, and it turned out the colonel had not wanted that doctor to communicate with us at all because he had a medical condition which was disqualifying from flight. So he was not going to admit to us what was going on. But as soon as I saw that medical record, I called him in my office. Even though I'm a major, he's a colonel, I had him standing at attention, and I read him the riot act, and I told him he needed to provide me all the medical records that he had been hiding, and if he didn't do it within 10 days, I was turning him into his chain of command, and they would be taking administrative action against him.
And I want to preface this, and again, we'll go full circle with this. You are willing to make that hard call.
I did.
You've had to.
He was forced into an early retirement in lieu of court martial.
So let's go back. That was a great example, because that it shows that you do the right thing. You follow protocol. So then this day happens. You're taking your booties and headgear off.
Yeah. So I'm walking down there, but let me say this real quick. I once had an argument with a 4-star general, and I won because I was right and he was wrong.
Right.
And the people advising him were wrong, and they were giving him bad advice, and I was the only person that was telling him the truth. Anyway, going beyond that, as I walked out, there was this guy. He seemed to me to be sort of insecure, and he said, "Hey, Doc, I want to show you something that you've never seen before."
So you felt he was insecure.
Yeah, I think he felt insecure, and looking back on it now, I think he was trying to build himself up by showing me how important he was. Well, the only thing is I didn't know what he was doing. So he said, I need to show you something. So I stepped into the office. There were windows and then a door. And so he shut the door, locked it, and then he closed the little louver mini blinds on the door and then also on the curtains.
So was this common to do?
Not as far as I was concerned. I thought, hold it, what is going on here?
Okay.
What's the guy up to? And like I said, I already had some concerns about him because of the way he was behaving. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I got to show you something. This is going to knock your socks off. So he sat down at a computer station, and did whatever he needed to do to bring up this video, because I don't know if it was a file, whether he was hooking into another location or what. But all of a sudden the screen came up, and so he moved to the chair right next to it to the left and had me sit down in his chair. So I'm looking at this video screen, and it looks like a typical hangar.
Like an Air Force hangar.
Yeah, it could have been an Air Force hangar, could have been a Marine hangar, Navy hangar. It was absolutely typical. But what was
not
in the hangar was not typical, because I'm sitting there and I look at it and it's a flying saucer. And
is that the best way you could describe it?
Yeah, that's what it was. I know spacecraft. I had a lot of training from the Air Force and NASA. I know what spacecraft look like. I know what RTGs look like, radioisotope thermal electric generators. I knew about the inertial upper stages that we would launch higher altitude or geosynchronous satellites out of the space shuttle. And this was nothing like that. It was a flying saucer. I mean, there's no interpretation needed. You know, it's
Right.
like if you said, I see a GMC pickup. Well, how do you know it's a GMC pickup? Well, it says GMC and it's a pickup.
Yes. Yeah.
So I look at this, it's a flying saucer. So, that really surprised me. So I made a comment to him about, why on earth would we design something like this? And, he didn't really give an answer that I recall anyway. And then I said, well, where did we get it? And he did this. He said, we got it from them.
From them.
From them. So that obviously meant outer space. So it had to be a vehicle not made by human intelligence.
Or the design, at
The
least.
design was.
Right.
Now then, we designed this one based on something else, is what I believe.
So he's saying that we either got it from the gods or we got it from a non-human intelligence.
Yes. Well, God would be a non-human intelligence. So we know for sure it was a non-human intelligence.
Right.
This was not anything that I was familiar with in any way, shape, or form. And I knew the aircraft.
So was it held up by a crane?
No, it was actually just sitting on this floor. It looked like it was a concrete floor with some sort of protective surface on it, and it's just sitting there. So over to the left, there were two guys that were in lab coats, so I assumed they were engineers. There were three guys over on the right side, and they were walking around, enclosed in Tyvek suits, is what I would call it today.
So like clean room? Potentially?
Yes. Well, these technicians were obviously working with something that you don't want dust, you don't want their hair falling out, you don't want parts of your clothing, the threads from your clothing getting on it,
right?
Any kind of thing like that. Just very shortly after it started, there was a warning sound that came up, and so the two engineers went this way, the technicians went that way, and then it's just sitting there.
So the video had audio?
Yeah, it had audio.
So this wasn't just closed caption,
oh no,
record security footage.
No, it what I would say was I was primarily flying with the 41st Air Rescue Squadron at that time, and we had H-3 helicopters.
Right.
If you hooked up a camera pointing at one of our helicopters in our hangar, and you had a clear closed circuit view of that helicopter, that's exactly what I was seeing, except that it wasn't a helicopter, it was a flying saucer. And now then, several minutes after everybody disappeared, it started giving off these sounds and what I took as signatures of electromagnetic discharges. But I want to be careful. I don't want to say anything about what it was or how it specifically acted, because I don't know but what that craft or a more advanced craft still using the same technology would be within the Air Force inventory. So I do not want to disclose anything that in any way could give any of our adversaries a leg up on what we know and what we can do.
So when have you seen the gimbal video?
Yes.
Do you think that could have been? Do you think the capabilities of the gimbal craft how it rotated and stuff. Do you think that that could be similar to this craft?
It would be very similar in activity, but in appearance, it would have been more like the Tic Tac.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Especially given, and it was
It
able.
was completely white. There were no seams, no rivets, no evidence of windows or doors, in anything of that sort. There was a mast that was sticking out of a shallow dome that was at the top, and then it had several umbilicals that went off screen. And if there had been nothing else there, it would have been pure white, looking sort of like if you modified an egg, it would look like that. Now, then the thing is, there was painting on it. There was horizontal rectangles located from the 1230 to 230 location, the 330 to 530 location. I didn't see it at first, but when it rotated, I saw that there was also a rectangle at the 630 to 830 position and at the 930 to 1130 position. So there were four equally placed around the beam of the craft.
What is that indicative of?
Well, whenever you're doing testing of aircraft, you want to follow every motion, especially if something is pure white. If it starts to do something, you can't really see what it's doing, but you put a rectangle vertically at 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 12 o'clock. As soon as the vehicle starts to rotate,
You can track
you're
that.
going to be able to track the motion by the movement of the rectangles.
Right. Right.
So that's what you do when you're testing the vehicle.
So all of this being said, all the circumstance is similar to or indicative of a test craft.
Yes,
It's just the craft itself that did not resemble anything that we have in our public inventory.
That's correct. As soon as I saw it and saw the way it was marked, I was thinking, okay, somebody's built a test flying saucer, and here
Who built it?
Well, my guess would be that it would have been one or more contractors. You know, if you think about how the Air Force acquires aircraft,
right? They don't build them themselves.
They don't build it themselves. They will give the specifications, and then Northrop will make their version. Boeing will make their version. You know, all these different companies will give their versions, and so they will make it look like it belongs in the U.S. Air Force, but it still belongs to the contractor who's making it.
Right.
Now, then, like when we wanted the advanced air superiority fighter, they had the YF-22 and the YF-23 built by different consortiums.
Right.
And so when they were being tested, they still had Air Force insignias and all of the markings that an aircraft that was in the Air Force inventory would have. But then they decided, we're not going to go with the YF-23, we're going to go with the YF-22. And so then they went into production, and then they made modifications. And when they came out with the actual F-22, the F-22 was introduced into the Air Force inventory, and they became official aircraft of the U.S. Air Force.
Okay, and that's how that goes. To date, we don't know that the U.S. Air Force has any of these craft in our public inventory. We know that they don't, but there was, and this is a detail that I think a lot of people missed the first time around, is a lot of the community, a lot of people in our community, they say, you know, why isn't there a Russian flag on these things? Why isn't there an American flag or a Chinese flag or some sort of emblem if they are human made, or ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles. What did, other than the rectangle track markings, was there any other marking?
Yes, and that's the second thing that caught my attention. Once it began to operate, one of the first things that it did was a very slow and smooth rotation, 360 degrees clockwise and then 360 degrees counterclockwise. Now then, as the what I would call the 12 o'clock position moved past me, I could see that it had U.S. Air Force right there, and then just above that was an American flight insignia. The Navy and Air Force use the similar
Yes,
markings on their aircraft. So it said U.S. Air Force, and then it had this flight insignia on it. So then I was sitting there, you got to be kidding me.
These are ours. What's going through your head? So is your reality going, oh my God, all these UFOs that have been seen by people, have they been ours? Or, I mean, but he also lets you know that we got it from up there. So that's playing in your head. I mean, what's going through your mind, like at that moment when you see that? I mean, this is an Air Force test vehicle. And
it's clearly a test vehicle, but there's several clues. There's no door, so you can't get into it. So it would not be a
unmanned,
human piloted craft. At the top of the mast, there were it seemed like 3 umbilicals that were there. So that was probably providing electricity, electrical guidance information. It could be having internal monitoring for how well is the mechanism for flight working inside the vehicle.
Right.
So a vehicle that was non-human intelligence that had flown through space, I've never seen a picture of one carrying umbilicals from their home planet.
I don't think so. I think that's a human trait.
So all of that spoke to me that, okay, we are trying to reproduce this vehicle from wherever we got it. But I want to bring up something that most people don't think about. Reproducing something is very difficult to do. Let's go back, just over 100 years. If we took one of the F-22 advanced fighters that we have now and transported it to 1914, and we gave it to the best aeronautical engineers in our country and said, reproduce it, they couldn't do it. They wouldn't know what the surface was made of. They wouldn't know what the
alloys
materials, the alloys were. They wouldn't even comprehend what the computer systems were.
Or integrated chips. This would be it would look like pure science and fucking magic.
Right. And if you can't make a transistor chip, you can't make an F-22.
Right.
But the thing is, there's lots of stuff in an F-22 that even though they were smart and brilliant people, there was no way to match what the industry that produced the F-22, less than 100 years later,
right,
could have done. And so this would have seemed like a spacecraft from Venus or something. The
F-22 would be a UFO.
Yeah, it would be a UFO. They would have no means of, in fact, in my lecture to the Navy PDS, I did that. I showed a Sopwith Camel and I said, okay, it's 1918 and you are this pilot. Now then you take off. All of a sudden, here comes an F-16 flying by you, and you say, "Oh my goodness, what was that?" So you keep flying, and 15 minutes later, all of a sudden, you see a B-2 bomber fly by you. It doesn't even have a tail.
Right.
There's no propellers on any of these things.
It looks completely different.
Yeah. And so he's shocked. He turns around and heads back for base. And just about that time, an SR-71 zips past him at 1,400 miles an hour.
Faster than sound.
Now then, he hears a sonic boom. He has no idea what it is because there's never been a sonic boom. Now then, he lands. He's going to have to tell his commander and the intelligence officer, well, there was this one aircraft that was small. It had this little dome on the front, and I think there was someone inside it, but it made this big noise, and I could not tell where on earth the propellers were. and so he's trying to describe the F-16. So he spends 30 minutes trying to explain that he saw an F-16.
But he knows what he saw.
He knows what he saw.
He knows it's real.
But he can't prove it because he didn't have a camera.
And all the authorities are saying, this guy's lost his mind.
Yeah. Well, next, he's going to describe a B-2 bomber.
That's, yeah.
Okay, it
yeah.
looks like a bat wing, but it's totally black. It doesn't make as much noise as the smaller aircraft, but it doesn't have a tail. There were no propellers on it. I couldn't even describe to you.
And it moved so fast, I could barely see it.
And so he spends 30 minutes trying to explain what the B-2 bomber was that he actually saw. When he gets through with that, he has to explain what the SR-71 looked like. Now, the SR-71 was made less than 50 years separated from what he's doing.
Right.
But the technology in 50 years has advanced so much.
Exponential.
He has no ability to describe what he saw in the
vernacular.
Yes.
It's not been created yet.
Yeah. He has no technical terms. He can't say there was a jet and it had its afterburners on.
Right.
No one knew what a jet was.
Or
no one knew what an afterburner was.
Right. Or jet propulsion.
Everything that flew had a propeller. These three craft didn't have a propeller. Also, this last one made this big, horrible, booming sound that shook me up, and it didn't look like it even did anything to it, but it shook my aircraft up and nearly blew my ears out. And going 8,000 feet was pretty high back then.
Right.
Well, this SR-71.
This is in low Earth
in
orbit.
3 minutes, it's over 50,000 feet and disappears.
Which is,
well, nothing can fly 50,000 feet in 1918.
Yeah.
So his ability to describe what he saw would be impossible. And yet this was human technology less than 100 years separated. So now then, if you're going to talk about maybe a civilization on another planet, on another star, and they are 100,000 years ahead of us, and they hand us a flying saucer, and they say, reproduce it. We don't know what the metal is that it's made of. We don't know what the propulsion system is. Roswell was 70 years ago, approximately. In 70 years, we still might not be able to completely reproduce that vehicle because we don't have the technology and material science to make the equipment and design functions that you have to have for this vehicle.
Right.
So, a lot of times people think, oh, a UFO crashes. 2 years later, we have a UFO working. Yeah. You can't do that.
No.
And so,
especially with compartmentalized information and
sure,
stovepiping.
But if you went back to Sir Isaac Newton and took that F-22 to him and said, "Hey, why don't you guys reproduce this?"
You can't.
He would have no ability to even conceive what this vehicle was. And this is still human technology separated by just a few hundred years.
It does make you wonder. And this is, it makes me wonder. And this, of course, this is, now we're into speculative territory here. But it makes me wonder if the future impacts, if the future has just as much of an impact on the now as the past does. You know, obviously the past brings us to the now, right? But what is time? I don't want to lose a tangent here. But
Sure.
what if these machines are?
Well,
do you think they're being donated to us, or do you think they are crashing and then we're retrieving them?
Well, this is purely my speculation. I don't think spacecraft that have flown across huge distances in space are just going to be crashing. Now then, if there are more than one sets of civilizations that are here and they don't always get along with each other, you know, civilization A has this kind of spacecraft, civilization B has this other one, and that's why they look different.
Right.
But if they are
At odds.
getting into a situation, one of them might say, look, no one's looking. I'm going to shoot down that other one. So they shoot it down and it crashes.
And then we have a Roswell.
Yes, and then we have a Roswell. I think it would be much more likely that the spacecraft of another civilization would shoot down one rather than all of these highly advanced spacecraft just crashing all the time.
Right. Now I want to, so obviously in the podcast that we did, we went really deep into it. So I don't want to stay too much on it, because I want to talk about some other aspects that we weren't able to get to. You don't end up reporting this major, because you start thinking in your head about all of the things that you would have to do to report him, which would then jeopardize your own standing.
Absolutely. In 1992 in the Air Force, nobody goes around and says, "Hey, I just saw a flying saucer." You do that, and
you either fly a desk or you fly the padded room.
Yes. That there was nothing in my knowledge. You know, I knew astronauts that flew in space and saw UAPs.
Well,
and when they came back down, there was no way they were going to report anything, because if they ever wanted to fly in space again, they had to keep their mouth shut.
Yes, they did.
So I knew of stories. I knew of Air Force personnel who had seen UAPs, but the one thing I knew for sure is that nobody's talking about it.
Right. So there's this clear brick wall in service persons, civilian contractors, in this black world of, we all know the objective reality, but we can't talk about it openly.
Well, go back to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There's these aircraft, and you see the air traffic controllers that are talking to the pilots, and they are experiencing a UAP.
Right.
And they can see it. It flies right by, all that kind of stuff. And then afterwards they say, "Do you want to report a UFO?" And one of the guys says, "No, I don't want to report one of those."
Yeah.
He doesn't even want to use the term UFO.
Right.
And so the air traffic controller asks the other guy, "Do you want to file a report?" And the guy says, "I don't even know what kind of report I would file. No, I'm not going to file." and so
that was the mentality.
That's the way things have been done
Up until
yeah,
very recently.
at least since World War II.
Right.
Now then, one thing I would point out is, why would World War II be an impetus for increased observation? Now, observation of Earth is ancient.
Of course.
I was recently on a podcast with the Navajo Paranormal Rangers.
John Dover, yeah.
Yeah. And so as I was talking about this, John said, well, that's not anything new to us. We have the stories of the star people
Yep.
that we have known about for hundreds of years. And so you guys are just catching up to us.
Right. Right.
So
it's cultural. South America as well, as they're more open to talk about it.
India with the Vimanas.
With the Vimanas, yes.
So these are all things that have always been there, but it picked up after World War II. Why? Because we're setting off nuclear weapons.
So you think that there is a connection between?
I think that when a civilization advances to the point that you're setting off nuclear devices, that's going to get the attention of
Daddy coming home. I think Daddy's been out too long getting a pack of cigarettes.
Planet A says, hold it, we detect it. And
right.
And here's a key that people don't always think about. When we talk about, the explosion and the electromagnetic force spreading through the space, we forget, we know for sure that electrons and other subatomic particles can have quantum entanglement.
Yes. Spooky action at a distance.
Spooky action at a distance. And so if an electron on Earth is tied to an electron
Zeta Reticuli
12 light years away, and this one does something particular, they can see it there. And
at the speed of now, though.
Yeah.
With no discernment.
Yeah, because the spooky interaction at a distance is faster than the speed of light. It's instantaneous.
Yes.
No matter where it is in the universe.
Right.
So if all of a sudden we have all these quantum entangled particles on Earth, and we set off a nuclear device, sciences that are 100,000 years more advanced than we are could know how to pick that up and say, okay, the planet Earth
has ascended
just went nuclear.
Just went nuclear.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
We rang the bell.
Okay. Flight 7. We're sending you guys to Earth. We want to know.
Monitor.
And then when you think about the UAPs, how often are they around nuclear facilities?
All the time.
Yeah.
Bob Salas, I mean, he's a guy that we're going to be speaking to a little bit later today. I mean, this interview is you guys might not understand that, but we have a lot of things to do today at Contact, and I'm so glad you're here. But that's a huge aspect of this phenomena is with the rise in nuclear activity. I mean, Roswell is home of the 509th Bomb Squadron, the only nuclear equipped squadron on the globe at that time
in history that's ever dropped a nuclear weapon for real.
Those other guys that end up responding to Mac Brazel and the ranch and all that.
Not only that, but not too far away, you've got White Sands, and Operation Paperclip took all of the German scientists out there, and they're launching V2 missiles
and getting ready to turn that into the Saturn. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got to start asking yourself about, I mean, it's funny because in real estate, right, it's like location. But I say it in the UFO world, it's location. Yeah. Look at where these things are happening. And they're either in reference to water or reference to nuclear. Those are always common
or
elements.
other advanced technologies.
Right. Now, I
But
want to.
if when we start doing, just imagine that we knew about a civilization of people in the South Pacific that no one had ever found before, and we want to prevent any of the modern personnel from going out there and messing with them. We would set rules and guidelines for what you don't do.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, they build outrigger canoes and they start sailing to other islands. Well, that whole idea is gone because now they've got contact with other civilizations. So
Very
the
true.
reason we were wanting to protect them is no longer valid because they have developed the technology to reach out to other cultures. And
That's a great argument because a lot
our-
of people say like a lot of people think that they're just monitoring and they won't engage with us because they don't want to interrupt and they don't want to hinder or speed up our evolutionary process. Well, I think when we rang that dinner bell with the nuclear bell, when we rang that bell, I think we let the universe know that we were ready for a higher form of communication, intelligence, and consciousness.
yes, because we developed a technology that when you get to that point, it gets serious. But something else to think about is that once these other cultures come, they're going to play politics too.
Right.
Now then, if it was America and Russia and China, we may have a treaty that we're not going to do this stuff. But as soon as we get a chance to do it behind somebody's back, we're going to do it.
We do it.
So, like the Greys, if they've signed an agreement that they're not going to experiment on humans, as soon as nobody's looking, they're going to experiment on humans.
Yes.
If one culture says, hey, these Minuteman rockets out at Maelstrom Air Force Base look pretty advanced. I wonder if we can shut them down if we want to. Let's try that. So they shut them down and they said, okay, yeah, we can still control them. If they were trying to launch them, we could make sure that they couldn't launch these.
That's funny.
So they're testing us and they're testing their technology in relation to our technology. But how many times do we say we know that these UAPs are around military facilities, nuclear power plants? They're monitoring nuclear weapons
development.
sites. So if we were going to do this to another world, that would be the things that we'd be looking for.
Exactly. And that's why, not to go off topic here, because we have a couple more minutes. I have a question that I think is going to really drive us home here. But people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, they're always saying, oh, why would aliens or non-human intelligence, why would they care about humans? Well, that's the dumbest. That's one of the most ignorant arguments I've ever heard, because why do we have a fascination with insects in the rainforest? Because we want to know. We have a curiosity about us as intelligent, conscious beings to learn as much as we can about the environment that surrounds us. And if I was a civilization, an off-Earth civilization, or if I was an Earth civilization and we found life elsewhere, I'd want to know I'd want to know if they had an Einstein. I'd want to know when they figured out, do they have religion? I'd want to know all of that.
Yes.
So with that being said, after you see this video, you see the video in 92, you're doing presentations in 2024 on UAPs. There's a lot of time in between those. Now,
Yes. Well, see, one of the factors was that in the meantime, the Navy declassified the videos of those FA-18.
Correct. In
If
2020.
if they had not declassified that information, I couldn't have put it on my presentation to the Navy, to the Department of Defense in 2024. So every little step that we take makes the next step possible.
Right.
And it takes a whole lot of steps to get disclosure on these kind of things.
And that's why we have to mount pressure. And I think civilian scientists, people with credibility like yours, civilian journalists like myself, we're gonna have to be the ones to mount the pressure. And so I want to talk to you about something. In our initial interview, I asked you about retribution. And retribution, I don't just mean physical threats. Have you noticed anything since 92 and since you saw what you saw to right now? Has anything happened that made you say, they're watching me potentially?
Um,
You don't have to get too deep into it. Do you think that they have an interest in what you're saying?
I would say there's going to be somebody somewhere in the Department of Defense that's interested in what I'm saying. I can't say that I have been harassed in any way. There's been a couple of things happen, but where I live in Oklahoma, we sometimes have the internet go out for seemingly no reason. But I was in the process of sending a message to one of the people who have put their version of my story on the internet. And right when I got to the point to where I was making a specific point, the internet went out. Now then, that could have been absolutely happenstance. Somebody somewhere might have done it, but it was like 6 hours before the internet came back on. But in our part of the country, that's not necessarily unusual. So I would not rule that in that fashion. But
no Men in Black.
It was annoying.
No Men in Black have visited you.
No Men in Black.
And you know kind of what that's like.
Yeah.
To have.
Well, I've dealt with classified operations my entire military career.
Right.
So
so you're pretty keen. You would know if someone was following you. You would know if someone was making threats.
Yes, especially when you consider the stories about the Men in Black and so forth. Those people make sure that the people they're pursuing knows they're pursuing them.
Yes.
The Men in Black don't sneak around to where you don't know they've been there for 20 days. If somebody sees a UAP, they show up within 2 days and they come in and talk to them.
And they take
and they can stand around and do things to where you're being watched by the Men in Black.
Right.
So they're not going to be subtle.
Right. So I want to round. So okay. So you don't feel like you don't feel that the government is trying to stop you from telling the story of what you saw.
There is nothing at this point that would make me say that.
Okay, great.
If you think space flight is easy, it's not. I've talked to the astronauts that went to the moon. I took care of astronauts who were flying with the space shuttle. There's nothing easy about space. But the more you look at it, the worse it gets. And so when you start talking about sharing DNA between a human and some other entity from another planet, how well is that DNA going to survive and replicate?
So
those are questions that I can't answer.
Not yet, at least we can't answer. But listen, this is going to be I mean, I think we'll probably sit down one more time before the end of the Contact in the Desert. But I think this is a good place to wrap up on this one. What's next for you?
Well, I'm going to go have lunch with my wife.
Yeah, yeah. Your
Uh,
wife is great. She's oh my God, she's amazing. She's a wonderful,
Yeah,
wonderful person.
yeah, she
And I
is.
think that we're gonna have a lot of fun in the future. And I think I think probably next year you might be speaking at one of these things. So I just want to say thank you
Okay.
again for being a part of this and
Oh,
for letting me be a part of this.
not,
So
not a problem.
we'll chat more, but people really want to know how they can follow you and how they can keep in touch. Not, do you have any social media, or is there anywhere they can follow your work?
No.
Not yet. Not yet. The Bureau, the
Well,
International UFO
well-
Bureau. We're about to go represent the Bureau here at Contact in the Desert now. So lots of
Yes.
work to do. It's only 11:30 and we're just getting started.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Until next time, keep your eye on the sky. You never know what might fly by.